This entitled mum thinks she deserves special treatment at this bed and breakfast. This poor employee's patience is running thin when he has to continually stop this mum and tell her no. Happy birthday if today's your birthday, and on with the revamped show. 3 years ago, I went on a vacation to Aruba with my parents. It was our first time in the country, and we were going to this really big hotel. This hotel had 4 different restaurants, and 3/4 of them were buffets. 2 of them, one being a buffet and the other being an actual restaurant, required reservations for every time you want to eat there. We never once ate at those restaurants. The 3rd restaurant was a fancier buffet, but didn't require reservations. The last one was also a buffet, but it was lower quality, as it was beside the pool, and there's no dress code aside from no entering the restaurant while being dripping wet. You could be damp. The food was also not as fresh. My parents and I always went to the 3rd restaurant I mentioned for dinner because they had different food every night, and the food was much better compared to the poolside restaurant. Plus, we like eating indoors. The restaurant has a very strict dress code. You're not allowed to wear damp bathing suits under cover-ups. You aren't allowed tank tops, and open-toed sandals and Crocs aren't allowed. Flip-flops were fine though. They may seem a bit strict, but it's what's required. They're so persistent with their dress code. They even have 2 big signs at the front of the restaurant and just outside it to let people know that, hey, you need to dress decent if you want to eat in here. Well, as we're sitting at our table, there's a couple beside us. They're around my parents' age, late 40s, early 50s. I noticed the guy was wearing open-toe sandals and a tank top. The lady was wearing a damp swimsuit and wore a cover-up dress over it. I could tell because her swimsuit was dark. Apparently, one of the waiters noticed them and approached them. Since we were right beside them, we got to hear the whole conversation. "Excuse me, but you two need to change your clothes. It's violating our code."
How does it violate the code? We're not dripping wet.
"Well, for starters, sir, you're wearing a tank top and open sandals. Your wife is wearing a damp swimsuit that we can see under a cover-up." Now, after he said this, the entitled woman got really offended and kept trying to interrupt the waiter as he continued with the rest of the conversation. This kept happening until she finally had her chance to speak.
"So what if I'm wearing a tank top and sandals? Your dress code says I can't enter dripping wet."
"No, actually, if you check the front sign, it says our dress code." He points to the sign. At this point, the entitled man, I guess, realized he was wrong, so he stood up. But the entitled woman wasn't done.
"This isn't a swimsuit, it's a corset. I put it under this dress."
"Ma'am, I can see it's a swimsuit. You need to either leave our restaurant or change and come back." At this point, more staff members have crowded around their table, as well as the manager.
"Listen, you need to go change."
"I'm not changing. This is not a cover-up, it's a dress."
"There is still a swimsuit under it."
"No, it's not, it's a corset."
At this point, they've had enough of her. Thankfully, she wasn't really yelling, but she was still getting others' attention. The staff members didn't want them in their restaurant anymore.
"We need you to leave our restaurant, ma'am."
"You can't do that. I'm from America. This isn't fair."
"Listen, honey, I don't care where you're from. You're a person, just like the rest of us.
"You need to leave. Please do not come back. We don't want you here."
"Can't you still change and come back?"
"I'll change, but you can't kick me out like this." "No, we don't tolerate this behavior in a professional restaurant. Have a good rest of your evening."
The couple was escorted out by the staff, but the lady kept yelling, I'll change, I'll change." Yeah, a little too late there, honey. If they honestly would have accepted the code in the first place, they could have enjoyed a nice dinner. But nope, some people just think they deserve things in their favor. What's crazy is there actually was a buffet with that dress code that they could have gone to. They definitely would have known. They probably just came from the other buffet, didn't like the quality of food there, and thought they'd try and sneak into the other one. You might not like the rules that people set, but if it's their property, they get to make the rules. The good news is, if it's your property, you get to make the rules. So my family owns a bed and breakfast. The story takes place during the really big hurricane in 2018. It was when the hurricane had just turned into a tropical storm. Sometime that morning, this lady who is most commonly known as EP called, and this is the following conversation that ensued. The phone rings. I pick up the phone and answer with, "This is the bed and breakfast." A nice mannered woman responds with,
"Hi, me and my husband are spending a few nights with you in
2 weeks, and we're wondering if we could bring our son with us.
We can certainly add another person to your stay. May I ask how old your son is?
He is 10 years old.
Well, I'm very sorry, but unfortunately, we do not accept any children under 13 years old.
He is very well mannered and very mature for his age.
I'm sorry, ma'am, but it's simply our policy.
Well, couldn't you make an exception?
At this point, I can see where it is heading, and usually, when we don't want it to get out of hand, we just use this excuse. Once again, I apologize, but the state says our B&B cannot accept anyone under 13. Now, I can refer you to another B&B in the area who would be happy to accommodate your family.
Oh, well, I can't do that. I'll just stay at your business.
Okay, ma'am. Anything else I can help you with?
Of course. How much to add a third person in a separate room?
To add another person would be whatever the rate of the room for those dates would be. But I must ask, are you referring to your son?
No, of course not. He's too young.
She said this so unconvincingly. May I ask who you are bringing?
My son.
What the frick, lady? Ma'am, as I said before, we cannot accept anyone under 13. Clearly frustrated, she says,
well, can I just cancel my reservation then?
If that is what you wish to do, then of course. We have a 14-day policy that you lie within, so we will have to keep your first night's deposit.
I'm not paying for a room I'm not sleeping in.
It's our policy, clearly stated when you make the reservation. There is a low chance the room can be re-rented, and it pays for the companies that route our business, as well as the credit card company and any supplies we bought in preparation for your stay. EP clearly does not understand this and continues to scream at me that I cannot take her money because she hasn't stayed with us. This goes back and forth until she just hangs up in frustration. I go ahead and process the cancellation, and I thought that was the end of it. Oh boy, was I wrong. This is where the hurricane comes in. The phone rings. I answer the phone and say, this is the bed and breakfast.
I want to cancel my reservation.
It's EP calling back. I've already processed the cancellation. It's taken care of.
So I have my money back?
No, ma'am. We had to keep the first night's deposit.
Well, I saw your area is being affected by the hurricane.
That would be incorrect, ma'am. The coast did see some of the hurricane, but now it is a tropical storm, and we expect to see no more than 3 inches of rain by the end of it.
Yeah, but all the highways are closed, and it will be all wet and muggy.
They won't be closed in a week and a half when your reservation was, and it was your choice to vacation in a coastal state during hurricane season, ma'am. At this point, she berates me with more screaming, and she gets her husband on the phone, who, if they're reading this, I respect you, but dude, I am so sorry for you. The husband goes on to say, so there's no way for us to get our money? No, sir, it's simply the policy, I say, expecting heck to rain down. The husband sighs. Alright, thank you anyways. Have a nice day. You too, I say, relieved for it to be over. Or so I thought, again. No more than 5 minutes later, the phone rings. I answer with, this is the bet.
I want my money, or I'm going to show up anyways and expect to be accommodated,
screams the entitled mother. Finally, my dad, who is also the owner, overhears this and takes the phone. Now, I don't know what else EP decided to say for the next few minutes, but I do know that my dad doesn't take any crap. My dad calmly responds with, this is my home as well as my business. If you decide to show up, we will treat you as an intruder. The cops are no more than a few blocks away, and we have the right to defend our home. He hangs up, blocks the number, but not before writing it down on a sticky note and pasting it to the calendar on the date of arrival. Luckily for them, entitled parent and her kid never showed. I'm not sure if entitled parents just think everyone else is stupid. Like, how can you call up expecting to say, yes, I'd like my child to join as well, and when they say you can't, ask for an additional room for a mysterious third person? They're going to put 2 and 2 together. I don't know if they think they're being clever, but everyone else can see through your genius plans. She obviously doesn't understand the point of a deposit either. It's to guarantee that if there's something that's gone wrong and it's the fault of the customer, that any damages or costs to the business are covered for. I work for one of the 2 largest supermarket chains in my country, and over the past year to year and a half, we have had an issue with people overbuying baby formula. Often we would have the stock bought out within a few hours of it arriving on the truck, and as it was often a few days between shipments, this had led to complaints from customers. It had gotten to a point where both major supermarket chains instituted a limit of 2 tins per customer per day. This means the service staff had to be extra vigilant to ensure we did not have customers coming in multiple times to buy tins of baby formula. Anyway, the story. I was supervising the self-serve checkouts. For those unfamiliar with self-serve, it is essentially unmanned registers where customers can scan and pay for their own goods. I'm there in case any customers have problems with the machines. reasons, say a printer jam or the machine not accepting the customer's payment. Now, if we see a customer with baby formula, it is my responsibility to ask the customer if it is the first time they have been into the store to purchase that item. Normally it is, and we have no issues. Here is where things get interesting. Entitled parent walks into self-serve with 2 tins of baby formula and pays with cash. Is this the first time you're purchasing baby formula today?
Yes.
Okay, no problem. Just so you are aware, there is a limit of 2 tins per customer per day at the moment due to a shortage of supply.
Okay.
The customer pays for the goods and leaves. 2 minutes later, however, she re-enters the store, minus the 2 tins of baby formula, and heads back down the aisle where it is stored. She emerges with 2 more tins and attempts to come through self-serve again, but by this time, I've clocked her trying to break the limit. Excuse me, madam, but I can't allow you to purchase those tins of baby formula, as you have already bought 2 for today.
But I need it for my child.
Yes, madam, I can understand that, but you have already purchased 2 tins of formula for today. If you wish to buy more, you will have to come back tomorrow. At this point, I take the 2 tins of formula and void her transaction. As she leaves the store, I place the 2 tins behind the service desk and inform my supervisor of what has happened. You can probably guess what happened next though. Yep, 2 minutes later she walks back into the store and proceeds to pick out 2 more tins of formula, but this time she heads to the express checkouts, 15 items or less, which are adjacent to the self-serve. I explain to the attendant that the woman has already purchased 2 tins, and she cancels the transaction and takes the 2 tins off her and places them next to the 2 tins I had already confiscated. The customer leaves the store, but there must have been a strong wind because not 2 minutes later she was back again, trying to buy 2 more tins of formula. This time, however, she goes to the register on the far side of the store. I ask a coworker to keep an eye on self-serve for me while I walk around to the main register. She was just about to be served when I walk up behind her and pick up the 2 tins of formula on the conveyor belt.
But I...
No, madam, you have already purchased 2 tins today. That is the limit.
But I...
No. She walks out of the store all huffy, and I collect the now 6 tins she has attempted to buy and return them to the shelf. I have a sneaking suspicion her husband or significant other may have then come in to buy 2 tins, but as he is a new customer who hasn't purchased formula for that day, he's all good. So for any parents out there wondering where all the baby formula goes, this is what's happening. If you were the employee at the store, it would have almost felt like a game. Every 2 minutes you just see her come back in again and you're like, alright, let's do this again. Time to chase you down. There would have been something satisfying about taking away those 2 tins every time she tried. Rationing like this, unfortunately, rarely works. There's always loopholes and ways to get around it, and it ends up hurting the people who need it the most. It's unfortunate, but the most effective thing to do is simple supply and demand. Increase the price. If she wants to stock up on it, she's gonna have to pay for it. I was on my break between tours, just hanging out at the ticket office and schmoozing with customers because it makes them more likely to tip me. I may be shameless, but I will not be poor. Meanwhile, the 2 ticket sellers are busy dealing with the line of customers who are either buying tickets and drinks or checking in pre-bought tickets. TS1 is ticket seller 1, TS2, ticket seller 2. We have the entitled B, and HW is our hero woman. I'm standing near the desk trying to talk someone into buying one of the city guidebooks when I hear TS1 say, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but this ticket is for the tour that left an hour ago."
We were at dinner.
I'm sorry, ma'am, but we're busy tonight. I'm afraid we can't put you on the next bus. There's no room.
Excuse me? We paid for our tickets 2 days ago. You can't kick us off.
Ma'am, whenever we sell a ticket, we tell our customers they have to be here on time because we cannot hold the buses. We have a tour leaving every 20 minutes tonight.
Someone should have called us.
That's not our responsibility, ma'am. As you can see, we are attending over 40 customers in line at a time, and we're on a tight schedule. We cannot hold the buses and we don't have a time to call the customers. We explain all of this when we sell you the ticket.
No one told me that.
She was clearly frustrated.
Ma'am, it's part of our policy to explain that, and I know for a fact that they did explain it to you.
And just how do you know that for a fact?
Because, ma'am, the ticket seller circled where it explained the lateness policy that is printed on your ticket.
Whatever. Just put us on the next bus then.
I'm sorry, ma'am, but the next bus is full. Let me see if we have any openings. She began flipping through the schedule on the computer. Keep in mind, EB is holding up the line so bad that people are now out the door. TS2 is doing her best to keep things moving, but without both sellers checking people in, things are backing up.
Looks like we'll have some room on the 10 o'clock tour.
10 o'clock? That's almost 2 hours from now.
That's all we have tonight, ma'am. If that doesn't work for you, I can see what we have available tomorrow.
We can't do our tour tomorrow. We're going to a wedding.
Then I'm sorry, ma'am. It's 10 or nothing. If you want, I can refund your tickets, or I can see if rival company has any availability on their tours.
I don't want to go on their buses. Their seats aren't padded.
Then would you like a refund, ma'am? Please, there are people waiting in line behind you.
I'm not stepping away from this counter until I get a bus.
Hero woman is next in line behind the entitled B, and she's just as sick of this woman as we are. She groans and says, "Oh my freaking goodness! Look, just give her our seats for the next bus. We don't mind waiting for a couple more hours." "Ma'am, thank you so much. Here, step into my line real quick. I'll get you switched over while TS1 handles this woman here." My blood was boiling for a bit, thinking that EB had gotten her way, and that was the end of it. But TS2 had more planned, and I love her for that. As she's helping the hero woman, TS2 says loudly, "You know what, ma'am? For being so generous, kind, and understanding of the situation, I'm going to comp your tour tonight. Thank you so much for helping us resolve this situation." Entitled B is staring daggers at TS2 as she's talking to the hero woman, and her face is lobster red. "Here, ma'am, I'll comp your drinks too. Just so you know how much TS1 and I appreciate you for being such a polite and considerate person. And you know what? Are you going to be in town for a few days, ma'am?" "My husband and I are here till the end of the week."
"Perfect. Here is a ticket for our hop-on, hop-off trolley that goes all over town. This is just another little gift from us for being just so kind. This ticket is good for the rest of the week, so you and your husband don't need to worry about transport in town for the rest of your stay."
EB is obviously ticked off and very embarrassed. At least I hope she was. She was basically called out in front of 60 people. She snatches her updated ticket from TS1's hand and storms off to wait for the bus. I, unfortunately, had the displeasure of being the guide for EB and her husband's tour. She complained for a bit, but I just spoke louder and stood right next to her and locked eyes with her. That shut her up until the end of the tour at least. Surprise, surprise, she didn't tip. But then I had the pleasure of being the guide for the hero woman and her husband, who I gave a bit of special treatment as a further thank you from earlier. The bus for this tour was only half full, so I had the luxury of being able to be more friendly and personal with my group. I wanted to make sure Hero Woman got the tour she deserved. Those entitled people were completely consumed with where they had to be according to their timeline. They were late and still had the expectation that the bus should be waiting for them without any concept that maybe other people had somewhere to be as well. Like, they understand it for themselves. They've got a wedding to go to and that's important to them, but there's no sense that there might be other places that are important to other people to be on the right time. That is why the bus left. That's probably how you could sum up an entitled person. What's the one thing they're just not aware of? Other people.
Submit your story to be read on the channel at voiceyherestories@gmail.com and join our Voicey veteran community at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright, Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.